Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. And last night, I checked out the Arcane Mage when it comes to the next expansion at midnight on the midnight beta. And in today's video, I'm going to be reviewing my thoughts of it. Is it good? Is it bad? Should you be worried? You probably should be worried, so make sure to stick through the whole video to really see exactly what's going on with the specialization, considering that moving into the War Within, Arcane was my favorite specialization. I put this thing on a pedestal at the top of a little podium because it was so much fun to go on, blast out with lots of splinter damage from its new hero talent trees at the time in the War Within, with tons of mobility and utility and just feeling like you have massive control and you're just a monster on the specialization. It was very, very fun. Jumping onto the midnight beta was a jarring experience because it feels like we didn't really get anything new or exciting. They just kind of stripped us down, neutered us, totally depowered us. And I don't know if they've successfully made it less complicated. It just seems less enjoyable across the board here. So the main goal with Arcane, well, some of the first changes is that Invis doesn't give damage reduction. So just use that at the start of the game so you can get an Arcane Surge off. Otherwise, it's really annoying to get Arcane Surge off. You're going to blast out a bunch of new AoE damage with Arcane Missiles, Orb, Barrage, still kind of the general rotation. And you're trying to build up stacks to make your Barrage hit really hard while fishing for these procs to get clear casting. So you can see this icon at the top right here, that pink icon means my Barrage is super juiced. So you see I did like 40% of that Death Knight's damage. That seems to be the priority build. I copied my talents. Aegis helped me out. Multi-rank 1 Mage, filling out my talents for Arcane. So I'm coming onto this, haven't played it in a while. So this is kind of just like, if you're a new Mage, it's going to be even rougher, honestly, to be able to figure it out in this position. But that's the main goal, is you're just fishing for procs, using missiles to buff up Barrage, and that's it. Like, that's all you can really do, because you're going to want to take the 2 charges of Shimmer, so you don't really have Displace anymore. So you just blink twice, and then you're kind of stuck. So you can see, like right now, kind of stuck, trying to use Frost Nova and trying to get distance. But for the most part, melee are gonna, if you're a melee DPS, you're pretty happy about everything that I'm saying about Arcane, because it's not even close to as difficult as before. Like previously, I could have displaced back, then I could have blast waved them, then I could have blinked again, then I could alter time back, and I'd be on the opposite side of the map blasting a bunch of stuff. You also unfortunately have to lose Presence of Mind in order to get Slipstream, which is the move cast missiles, and no move cast missiles is no bueno. Like, it just does not feel good to try to cast missiles stationary without that move casting, unfortunately. So there's just a lot rotationally. It still feels kind of complicated. It feels kind of clunky, and I feel like people don't like the word clunky when you're describing the rotation, but it's kind of just like you feel sort of lost. You're just like right there, I just hit him really hard because I got the Barrage proc, but I kind of just feel like I'm randomly flailing around until the pink lights light up, and then I'm trying desperately to race to get a really big Barrage hit, and that's basically the entire gameplay loop for it. I just don't know if it's that intuitive compared to the previous iterations of Arcane Mage. When I think of this, the simplistic Arcane Mage was just Arcane Blast 4 times, Barrage. And that was all you were trying to do. And then you'd like throw in a couple of missiles in between. But right now, Arcane Blast just doesn't really do a lot. And it's also very hard to actually just like stand there and use it. So you often are just spamming instant casts. Arcane Explosion, which is what I think I was dragging onto my bar there kind of last second, and Arcane Orb still. The Arcane Orb build, I've seen PvEers are very happy about it, but they've kind of changed it a lot, and I don't think it's going to be the build that at least you'd play right now. Maybe it will, depending on tuning moving into the future. And if you want to make sure you stay up to date with that tuning, then smash the subscribe button so you don't miss out. You do at least still have things like Ice Wall to feel kind of cool, because that was the thing about Mage, is that you just had all of the cool spells. You had the knockbacks, hyper mobility. You felt like Tracer in Overwatch, and with knockbacks and wall offs, it just felt like you could really hard carry on a game. Now it kind of just feels like you're a lot more stationary, a lot more dependent on RNG. Your cooldowns are also a lot more difficult to actually successfully secure. Things like Arcane Surge, especially if Sun Fury still ends up being the priority hero talent, is because you have to be stationary to cast it. And then so enemies see it coming, they can kick it or they can run away from it. If they run away from it, then it gets really difficult, because then your Phoenix doesn't connect down to it. You lose a big window to get a lot of procs, to get a lot of big barrages out. I just feel like basically everything about the spec is very predictable. You feel like an NPC or like a raid boss with very readable mechanics. Now, obviously, I'm in a lobby with 2 Unholy DKs, and Unholy DK is by far the best specialization as far as tuning goes. I don't know. You guys got away with getting buffs in PvE that came over into PvP, and now you guys are just like, absolutely dominating. So maybe this is also just like an issue with me playing against the multiple of the best class in the game, but it's just a very passive play style. Just stay really far away, try and limit their mobility, so they have to use things like grip so you can blink away and hopefully get to safety. Use your altar really early so that way you're getting more shimmers because your mobility is heavily limited. Using your barriers as well to try and remove snares, and then trying to get an Arcane Surge off, which somehow I got off in the face of two Unholy Death Knights. I don't know. So now we're going to be able to blast off some damage. Once you actually get the Arcane Surge and you can combo it with the new Touch of the Magi's where you get like 2 charges of it, it can feel a lot better in that regard. And you can see I'm fishing for procs. We got a barrage. We can lob that one out, and it's going to likely chunk this DK really hard in a moment here. Right there, Paladin kind of negated it. I feel like Arcane is also just a spec that if the meta is going to be about sustained damage, where health bars aren't, ping-ponging up and down, you've been kind of a burst assassin for, many years. I think burst assassin roles will likely feel a lot worse unless they increase their sustained damage substantially. So here I tried to finally make a play. I saw a wall that pushed the Paladin out into the open, so I was going to try and DB sheep, but as soon as I can't get it, I'm just immediately back into just proc mode, which is just spam instant arcane spells till pink lights light up, and then shoot missiles until the big pink light in the middle lights up, and then your next barrage is going to hit really hard. So just trying to figure out that rotation like intuitively before I talk to Aegis. That wasn't happening. I was like trying to blast, and trying to use my builder and then trying to use missiles. And yeah, that kind of like more intuitive way of trying to play Arcane is just not going to work. I think the proc play style, try to make yourself tanky, run away, utilize spell steal on high utility spells, here like Blessing Protection or Blessing of Freedom, or the Life Bloom against the Resto Druid, and just trying to play like defensive most of the time ends up feeling a lot better as far as trying to make yourself feel viable in the current meta, because that's very difficult. I would say Arcane, if you get the Omega one shot, you get everything off from Invis. You can do a lot if the other team isn't responsive, doesn't run, doesn't line, doesn't use cooldowns. You can get like a really big hit when people are unsuspecting it. So here I used the Invis, went for the Arcane Surge, got it off, Touch of the Magi. Now look, we can light up a whole bunch of damage in that small window of time and really kind of force major pressure, start getting the Paladin to spend a lot of mana. But the pacing of the game is a lot different, right? Like it's not, being a burst assassin, just the identity basically doesn't exist. So I don't know what they're going to do about that, if they're going to just make everything a sustained spec. Although I will say with the current pacing, at least, these DKs are not going back to full health, right? Which is nice, because usually if this was in the War Within, I would have tossed that burst out, and then after my burst runs out, they would just be full health in like a millisecond. So intensity is a little bit better, and I think that's the word that they really need to focus on is intensity. So like right now, me and my hunter are 50% health. Like we're kind of in trouble. Like what's going to happen? Nobody really knows. Still trying to stay on our toes. Building that level of intensity and anticipation is what makes the gameplay fun and exciting. I think it's one of the main reasons why people prefer leveling in classic WoW, is because your health bar actually goes down. Unlike in retail, where you can pull a bunch of mobs and just AoE them down kind of effortlessly. There's no intensity. There's no like build up towards a specific moment. So I do think the intensity build is nice. It's just going to feel like either they're going to have to rework some of these specializations. I just feel like Arcane is still not really intuitive rotationally as far as like reducing its complexity. Here we're getting some nice sheeps on the Paladin though, and walling them off from the Death Knight, feeling like we're actually making some plays in the game, trying to DB him and Ice Nova him before he can get around the corner of the wall. Gonna have to cancel though because my hunter's on the other side. Go for the Arcane Surge, we get the Phoenix, we can blast out, and you can still win. So like we beat double DK, which is like the double god comp, right? Like you can still win with it, but I just don't know if it's really any less complex than it was before. It's definitely less frustrating to fight against as a melee because you're actually able to touch the Arcane Mage, which maybe was a necessary change, right? It was a necessary change. I just feel rotationally, it just doesn't flow as nicely as maybe I would like, but maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's fine that it feels different than other specs. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. You guys let me know in the comments down below, because Arcane Mage, at least to me, has been like one of the more unapproachable specs as far as difficulty and complexity. And I think a lot of the PvE players are saying that they really like the rework, and that apparently it is a lot better and easier to understand in PvE. But in PvP, I feel like it's still a little bit random. Like right here, you can see at the start, I want an Arcane Surge, but they can kind of just run away. And then if they run away, my Phoenix is out of line, I'm like, Sedge. But we're going to alter. We can use our Touch of the Magi out of this to really boost up our damage and get some procs. That's the nice part about Touch of the Magi with talents. You can get a guaranteed missile, which is going to help you build towards those stacks to get that really fat barrage hit, which now we've got one of these fat barrages, so we can blink away, lob a couple more missiles out over on his hunter, and then blast him down with another touch of the Magi. Although we are taking a lot of damage, so we're going to have to ice block. Unfortunately, not going to be able to keep our pressure going. We get Searing Glared. We'll just drop down a ring and try and fake kicks. Go for the ring to try and hit all the pets. There's a lot of pets to deal with. Ring of Frost is a really effective tool still in that regard. But it just doesn't have the same flavor. And maybe it's just because it was super broken OP in a lot of those situations. And maybe this is just being taken down to earth. And this is just the reality for the specialization. But it just feels like this invisible stacking mechanic. Like maybe I need to turn the cooldown tracker on. I'm not sure if they've added that. There are ways to like track certain buffs in the middle of your screen. I'll have to take a look to see if those stacks go there or not. But you can see I think I'm at like 14 right now, and then I shot it out at 14 and it didn't really do a lot of damage. So you're kind of just build up and then press this barrage. I just wish that other abilities felt a little bit more impactful as far as moving the health bar. It really just feels like barrage is the only thing that's capable of moving the health bar, and it requires like a lot of stacking to get to that point. Other classes are like one button specs, but the one button they're hitting just always hits hard, and this is what I mean by it's like not intuitive compared to other specs. Other specs just run in, do their 3 or 4 button rotation, and they're moving somebody's health bar. Whereas Arcane is like you're pressing a lot of buttons that are doing nothing, and then you're tracking this thing invisibly that gets to a point where it can completely overload the target and one-shot it. But if you didn't know that, it just seems like there's a lot more going on. But maybe that's the intent with Arcane. Maybe it's meant to be chaotic and hectic in that regard. But for me personally, I've played a lot of specs, right? And I feel like being honest is going to be more important than trying to just like talk up everything being positive, right? Because some things aren't. And I think Arcane could use a little bit of assistance. Maybe this is something that's adjustable with PvP tuning, like more arcane missiles damage, maybe even more arcane blast damage. So like standing still and casting arcane blast can actually feel more rewarding than it currently does, and taking some damage out of the big stacks on the barrage, because we've seen that with a bunch of classes like marksman, right? These classes stack a bunch of modifiers, the ability hits for an excessive amount, and it's just like you feel useless outside of that window. And I feel like the goal for the specs is to try and make them feel like they're making progress and intensity in the match at all times. So that's kind of just my personal feedback, at least my experiences with the Arcane Mage. Having lost all of the tools on it makes it feel a lot less fun. It feels a lot less fun. So I'll have to wait and see where it goes. I do think Fire and Frost, or at least, are still like somewhat serviceable as far as specializations go, and I'm going to be playing some of them probably the next time I'm on the beta. You can see here I'm getting massive stacks, and I can start chunking down the Hunter's health bar, but now the stacks are all over, so we're going to have to look at building those back up with these missile procs as soon as possible. And it's just hard. It's hard. You have to take like a lot of extra PP talents now, lose out on other ones as well, and trying to keep Chrono Shift up without like spending your barrage stacks all the time. It's pretty tough. But if you don't play this build, you're basically not gonna be able to move someone's HP bar, which I feel like is kind of bad, right? Like if you log into the game, you're Arcane, you're like, oh, these talents look cool, and you pick them, you fill them in, you're useless unless you run like a very specific thing. I feel like that's definitely gonna need some adjustments and some tune-ups. But obviously we're still about maybe what are we, halfway through the beta, maybe early 25% to 40% of the beta. So maybe this is something that they can look at, they can address. It seems like they do kind of hyper focus on some specs, when you read the patch notes and there's just paragraph after paragraph with some of them, and then other ones get nothing. So maybe this is just a matter of time until they get back to it, because obviously something like Fire Mage was kind of in shambles for a while there, so they drew attention to it. But there's some other specs I think they could definitely use a helping hand as far as redistributing their damage so that it's a little bit more straightforward to play than other specs. Like to me, when you get a missile proc, that missile should hit pretty decently hard, right? Like if you're a Ret Paladin, you get a Templar's Verdict proc, you hit pretty hard in that moment. It'd be a little bit more straightforward than this like combo stacking. But you can see once you get the combo stacking, you do a lot of damage. You are able to ramp, and honestly, maybe if you can actually free cast, you might have the peak damage of any spec in the game at the moment, because not a lot of specs can actually do burst. But outside of that window, it seems kind of janky relative to how the other specializations are designed at the moment. But that's the breakdown for Arcane Mage right now. That's my current assessment for it. You can definitely make it work, but you need to have specific talents. And once you figure out the kind of modifier stacking build, you can definitely make it work, but I don't think it's going to be intuitive or simple to pick up for somebody who's just never played it before. So thank you guys very much for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.